Hi, I'm here today with Adam O'Neill of Asia Advisory, and Adam has been participating in the China Canvas Challenge. So Adam, firstly, could you give us a bit of background about yourself, what you've done, what your company does, and where it's headed?
Sure. Thanks for having us, Terry. I'm really excited about talking about Asia Advisory and also talking about our participation in the China Canvas Challenge. So my background has been in marketing for the last 15 years. I studied marketing at Macquarie University in Sydney and started working with advertising agencies in Australia as my sort of first introduction to the industry. I've been very lucky during my career to be able to travel with those roles, and back in sort of 2004, I found myself in London, coming back into the ad industry again. And when I was in London, we started looking after LG Electronics, and I was setting up the global team for that business and traveling back and forward between London and Seoul. And we had quite a transactional sort of relationship, and we found that to really sort of take that business to the next level, we needed to be on the ground in Korea. And the management at the time asked me to spend more time in Seoul, and so back in 2010 I relocated to Korea to live full time. And the first 6 months were very sort of challenging. We didn't have an operation, we didn't have an office. We had partners in the market, but no independent operation. So I sort of spent my time between LG's offices and our sister companies to try and figure out where I could get a desk. And it would be a lot of business development in those initial stages was done through Korean barbecue and karaoke and golf. And those sort of things. So like on a Monday night, I'd get a phone call from the client, and they'd be asking me, Adam, what are you doing? And I'd say, I've just finished all my work for the day. I'm ready to relax. And next minute, come down and have Korean barbecue. And then, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting there with the credit card in the corner of the bar, waiting for them to scan it, so that I can get the receipt and go home. But we found that relationship really evolved very quickly off the back of having that presence. And then coming back to Australia after that role, I found that a lot of Australian businesses really struggled to understand how to work with Asia, and the importance of those relationships, and the importance of having people on the ground in market. And so that was one of the things that gave me the courage to set up Asia Advisory. And where we're at the moment, we're still very young. We're only 6 months old as a startup. Based here at Haymarket HQ, and we're trying to help Australian tourism businesses to attract customers from Asia. And when I say Asia, I mean in the broader context, so not just China, but Korea and Japan as part of that.
So what type of services do you provide to those businesses?
Sure. So we're doing two things at the moment. Part of it is acting like an agent and helping them with their digital marketing and translation and getting their products ready to go into market. And then the second part of it is what I would call like a go-to-market strategy to help them with their links into the trade and the B2B relationships to then be able to sell their products to Asian tourists. And that's one of the complicated things about the tourism sector, is it's not just a direct sale between a product and an end user. In some instances, there can be 3 or 4 other parties involved in that transaction.
Yeah. And what made you think about joining the China Canvas Challenge?
Initially, my thought about doing it was to very quickly come up with a plan or a strategy to enter China. Because of the background with Korea, we already have strong relationships in that market. We travel up there 2 to 3 times a year. We were just up there for a month in November last year. But China for me is a new frontier. It's not something that I've previously thought about how we would enter there. And to be really blunt, my understanding and knowledge of China is still very fundamental. So apart from a couple of business trips into Shanghai for conferences and that, I have very little understanding of China.
And given that you've been ranked highly, third place in week 3 of our challenge, you're obviously doing a fair bit of work on it. You're taking it quite seriously.
Yeah, yeah. It's for me. This is a really challenging but very iterative process. So the way that I see it is by asking the hard questions up front, it's going to save me a lot of time down the back end. So literally we're rolling with the business plan as we go through the course. So we watch the videos, we complete the questions, I try to draw visuals to how it's going to work just to kind of get it right in my head, because we're literally writing the business plan as we go.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've watched you change the story over 3 weeks.
And it literally has been an iterative
Which is
process.
Good. This is good.
So,
that's a much better thing than sort of coming up with perfection on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So that's good. So what are the things that you think have been good so far about the program, and where could we improve?
Sure. So I think some of the real benefits around the program is having that first-hand knowledge. So hearing people talk about their experiences in China. As a startup, to access that type of information is invaluable. If you were talking to consultants or you were trying to meet with these people face to face, you'd be very hard pressed to get that sort of information free of charge. So I think that's a real benefit of the program. The other thing is it helps you to kind of iterate your view on that and think about it from your company's perspective when you are putting those answers together. So I think that's probably the most valuable thing that I've got out of the program. The challenges are it can take time. I've had to be really disciplined with how much time that I put into completing the assignments, and that it's probably not the same for every company going through the program, because some of them are probably a lot more developed than we are. But the thinking and the thought processes that go into those decisions are something that I've been thinking about outside of office hours. So commuting and stuff, I've been watching the videos and then thinking, how does that apply to what we're trying to do? So I've found the online learning quite valuable, and it's very flexible. But yeah, don't underestimate the time that you need to put into to pulling a business plan like this together.
Cool. So out of 10, how would you rate it so far?
I would say it's almost a 10 out of 10. I've really enjoyed the process for the feedback that's come out of it as well with the assignments, and I think given the structure that each week you focus on another area of the business plan, I think it's very well structured in how you answer those questions and how you come to the thinking or the terminology, because there's stuff in the program that I hadn't thought about. For example, how to tap into the Daigo market, and as a service-based business and a company that's trying to link experiences to end users, but through third parties, it's never a channel that I've thought about in the past. But then having seen some of the videos and how people apply that for products, it makes me think, actually there is a role for Daigos and KOLs to play in that process. So I've sort of had to retrofit those different channels.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Terry.